Well, the US will temporarily allow countries to buy sanctioned Russian oil and petroleum products. The Treasury Department says the 30-day measure will apply only to vessels that have already been loaded. The move is the latest attempt by President Donald Trump's administration to curb energy prices, with the conflict in the Middle East paralysing shipping through the Strait of Hormuz and disrupting oil and gas flows. It comes a day after the US announced the release of 172 million barrels of oil from a strategic reserve to help stabilise volatile energy markets. European leaders have raised concern over the purchase of Russian oil due to the war in Ukraine. The war in Iran appears to be putting pressure on US air defences. The US military says Iran launched at least 500 ballistic missiles and 2,000 drones just in the first 4 days of the war. American forces and their allies are firing expensive interceptors to shoot them down. The US relies on systems such as THAAD and the Navy's special anti-missile capability. But those interceptors are limited. As of late last year, the US had more than 500 THAAD interceptors and about 400 SM-3 missiles. However, they can run out very fast. During Israel's war with Iran last June, the US is estimated to have fired between 100 and 150 THAAD interceptors and around 80 SM-3 missiles. Each interceptor can cost between $4 and $15 million, and replacing them can take many years. Well, the first 100 hours of the Israeli-US war in Iran are estimated to have cost at least $3.7 billion. Elijah Magnier is a military and political analyst. He joins us from the Belgian capital. Good to have you on the programme, Elijah. We'll get to these figures in a second, but let's set the scene here. This was a war. It was presumed the US and Israel could win with brute force and shock and awe tactics. But Iran has struck back, grinding global energy supplies to a halt, striking its neighbours, mobilising Hezbollah, restoring its power structure after attempts to decapitate it. And now Trump's no longer projecting power at home. He's scrambling to reassure Americans that fuel prices will not soar. And of course, Elijah facing questions over whether he's responsible for the killing of at least 165 schoolgirls on the first day of the war. Is this a humbling moment, do you think, for the United States?
Thank you for having me. I think it is a very difficult moment because the Americans did not foresee such a war lasting so long, and the reaction of the Iranians and the allies, above all, as you rightly included Hezbollah, but also the Iraqis, you have today three fronts that are engaging. The Americans did not expect such a damage inflicted on all its military bases in the Middle East. The Iranian reaction also against the Strait of Hormuz was not foreseen at such a scale. And also Hezbollah firing 100 missiles in one day. That's a lot of pressure on the Israeli interception missile system. So all that, plus what we heard from Steve Witkoff, that he's trying to reach out to the Iranians who are really not interested in stopping the war. Therefore, the one who's going to blink first is the one who's going to be declared as the one who lost the battle. And this is certainly something that Donald Trump doesn't want to do, but also he's facing a greater domestic pressure by the people in America, but also the Israeli citizens. So the whole picture, I don't think the Americans were prepared to. And above all, the Iranians are preparing for a war of attrition to last longer. And we understand that from the quantity of missiles that are launching, reducing that really to keep the Israelis in shelter and keep the Israelis engaged all the time with their interception system.
Elijah, how far back do you think these miscalculations by the Trump administration have gone? But looking at just the basic arithmetic of how much it costs to replace these interceptors compared to the price of Iranian Shahed drones, tens of thousands of dollars for those, many millions of dollars to replace these interceptors. I mean, surely these supply chain issues would have been thought through?
I don't think so, because what the Americans and the Israelis foreseen is 2 or 3 or 5 times the interception missile system they have invested in June 2025. And we understand from President Trump, who told us only after 5 years, Benjamin Netanyahu reached out asking to stop the war. And we've seen in the last couple of days in June, where the Israeli interception missile system was already flooded and overwhelmed. Now we see a larger quantity of missiles fired by Iran in the first day. We see the Hezbollah firing a large number of missiles, but also drones to exhaust the Israeli missile. But also we see a coordinated attack. So hearing what Donald Trump is saying, contradicting himself several times in one sentence and every single day, the confusion is very clear that this war actually was not prepared to be faced in the way that it is running today.
Elijah Magnier, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.